This is a short video to help parents to help their children at home with their reading by asking questions. Good readers ask questions before, during, and after they have read a text. Sometimes the question is answered in the text. Sometimes you have to use your own prior knowledge and what's in the text to help you come up with the answer. Sometimes the question may not be answered by the text at all, and you will have to find some other source of information to help you. Asking and answering questions helps you to look for information which builds understanding. Today we're going to talk about some basic questions where the answers are obvious and clear in the text. Secondly, we're going to be talking about inferring. Inferring is being able to read between the lines when the author implies something but doesn't exactly state it. You will need to use clues in the text and your own prior knowledge to help you understand. We are going to use a text from a novel to demonstrate this with you. Today we are going to demonstrate some of this questioning from a text taken from The Silent One, which is written by Joy Cowley. I will read some of the passage for you. They would leave at sunrise with much energy and good humor and would return at the end of the day with their quarry. Big pigs bleeding on poles, ready for the women's fires, and small pigs writhing and trussed with vines. He had watched the dances of welcome and later sat behind the hunters at the feasting, sharing the leftovers with other children. Every pig hunt he had dreamed of the day when he, too, would go to the green darkness of the mountains. This should have been his day, but the men had gone without him. They'd taken his 13-year-old foster brother Samu, even though Samu was too small to carry his share of the kill. They'd taken Aisaki. They'd even taken that foolish Etika, whose spear arm was so weak he couldn't hit a canoe at 10 paces. But when Jonasi had rushed forward to join them, they'd pushed him back among the old men and women and children. Aisaki, who was the chief's son and more of a friend to Jonasi than the other boys of the village, had tried to explain. He'd put his hands over Jonasi's ears, then his mouth. He'd pointed to the mountains, shaken his head with a small smile, and patted Jonasi on the shoulder. Was it because Jonasi didn't know the meaning of the mouth movements? He hadn't watched the hunters leave the village. Instead, he had gone back to the bure where he'd lain curled up on his sleeping mat, his mind full of pictures of pain and revenge. But out here on the reef, the pain was easing. There was no place on the sea for bad feelings of any kind. He knew that whatever his pain was, the sea would always heal it. His paddle guided the raft with hardly a ripple as he studied the shapes that passed beneath him. He was moving past the village and near the next bay where the fresh water from the river cut a deep path through the coral. He could see ahead the dark blue of the channel, and to his right the brilliant green of the mangroves that crowded the river mouth. Above the mangroves, herons flapped lazily, looking for food. So, a couple of basic questions to ask your children that would encourage them to go back and revisit the text to find things would be things like who went on the hunt and who is Aisaki. And you can see on the sheet marked below, the yellow highlights will show the answers to that. Now, the second kind of question, which is one which reveals deeper meaning, would be something like, why had they not taken Jonasi on this hunt? And the answer to that would be drawn from the information highlighted in green on this sheet. You'll notice that It is talking about Aisaki being a friend to Jonasi, that he had tried to explain by putting his hands over his ears and then his mouth, pointing to the mountains, using a form of sign language to try and make Jonasi understand. That would tell me that Jonasi couldn't hear or couldn't speak. So as a conclusion, as you can see, it is well worth your time and trouble to look for information and ask your children questions. These questions will help them find deeper meaning, and also it is often a good idea for you to read to your children and entertain them. They love listening to a story being read.